Hard Rock Park was the first brand spanking new, major theme park to open in the United States since Disney's Animal Kingdom 10 years prior. It was almost entirely built from the ground up, costing over $400 million to complete. It opened its doors on April 15, 2008, and then, just 163 days later, the park as we knew it was gone forever. Take a moment to let that sink in. A major theme park that cost hundreds of millions of dollars to bring to life was only open for less than half a calendar year. The craziest thing about Hard Rock Park is that it was legitimately one of the world's greatest theme parks, but almost inconceivably, pretty much no one on the planet got a chance to even see it. I, however, was one of the lucky ones, and this is where our story begins. Back in 2008, a friend of mine sent me an article about a brand new theme park opening in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina called Hard Rock Park. If he hadn't sent that to me, I might not have ever even heard of it. I wasn't one of those Hard Rock superfans who collects the shirts or anything, but I do love me some themed entertainment, and a potentially hokey new theme park based on a definitely hokey themed restaurant is an absolute bullseye in my target of interests. So I rounded up a few friends and we decided to go check it out. Now, we lived in New Jersey and we were cheap, so instead of flying, we chose to endure the 700-mile drive down to South Carolina. Look at that sweet setup. 3 pieces of obsolete technology all in one. A car cigarette lighter port, an iPod, and an adapter to play it through the radio. And I can't forget about my handwritten paper directions either. I don't know how we ever lived like that. Of course, we had to stop at south of the border on the way down. The 100 or so billboards promoting it can't be wrong, right? 100 billboards is a real number, by the way. It's not an exaggeration. I checked their website. After a brief stop to procure some merch, which I still own to this day, we were back on the road. I know this video isn't about this, but if you ever stayed at south of the border, like in the motel, please tell me all about it in the comments. I need to hear your story. I'm getting off track. Soon we saw a different billboard, one advertising America's newest theme park. This really was a huge deal, and it absolutely should have been treated as such, but we'll get to that later. After a night's sleep at the local Holiday Inn, we were ready to see what Hard Rock Park was all about. Even with the excitement of checking out a new place, we didn't have high expectations. Hard Rock restaurants are kind of one note. Get it? Also, the park was in South Carolina. Now, I don't want to speak ill of South Carolina, and I had only driven through it prior, but it didn't really seem like a place that would have themed entertainment surpassing south of the border quality. There were only 2 things, really, that we knew would be at Hard Rock Park. A Led Zeppelin-themed roller coaster, and a ride based on the Moody Blues hit Nights in White Satin. Even as we approached the gate, we laughed at how ridiculous the experience was about to be. The very first thing we saw was this lyric on the wall, and I remember audibly groaning. There was no way this place was going to be any good, right? Turns out, I have never been more wrong about anything in my entire life. Once you walked up the main drag, passing the fully stocked and excellently named Whammy Bar, you were greeted by this amazing lagoon and iconic guitar. Long before my beloved kite tails at Animal Kingdom, Hard Rock Park added some great kinetic energy to the view, with the guy in a jet ski circling around with, kite tails. We soon realized the place was meticulously clean, beautifully designed, and put together with an astonishing level of detail. Like, insane. Look at this. Great Meats Diner becomes Eat Me Diner at night. The Cod Piece Fish and Chips. Come on. Whack a Boy Band. Music quotes on the generators about electricity. Pictures of people checking out your junk at the urinals. Even a nod to Disneyland's Excalibur with the guitar and the stone. And that's not even all of it. There's a ton that I'm missing. The one thing that completely blew my mind was the atmosphere music. Hard Rock Park was divided into lands based around music genres, so like country, British invasion and punk, reggae, and there were instrumental versions of popular songs that would play and seamlessly change genre as you moved about. So like, you'd be in the British invasion area and hear a classic rock-inspired version of Green Day's When I Come Around that would flawlessly transition into the reggae version of the same song at the same part when you moved into the reggae area. Absolute perfection. As we made our way onto the Eagles Life in the Fast Lane coaster, complete with official onboard audio of course, one thing was quickly becoming clear. There was no one in this park. As you'll see from most of these photos, it's very rare to see another human that isn't an employee. I'll get into the more obvious ramifications later, but at that moment in time, it just meant we were burning through this relatively small park to begin with at a ferocious pace. Next, it was off to the British invasion area with the punk pit. Again, the detail. The outside facade wall was like a warehouse made to look like faces. Beautiful. And inside was a punk-themed bouncy house that we had free reign of. Plus it had all these balls you could throw and shoot at people. So good. The piece de resistance of this area, and really the park as a whole, was the Moody Blues ride. This is not just my opinion, by the way. If you look up Hard Rock Park after watching this, which I highly suggest you do, this is the consensus opinion from every single person who went on it. Knights in White Satin, the trip, started with a queue filled with trippy effects like a hologram skull. Yeah, try and touch it. The smell of incense, and a rotating tunnel like Stargate that was surprisingly difficult to maneuver through. The ride itself was a dark ride where you traveled throughout a mystical world for the entire duration of the song with more effects and illusions than you could shake a stick at. It was so good. You can catch a ride through here on YouTube, and while it'll give you a taste, it's in the dark and before every bozo filmed the ride with a 4K camera, so it doesn't really do it justice. But it was the most unique and creative dark ride I've ever been on. Superstar Limo, this was not. And really, that sums up the best part about Hard Rock Park. It didn't have the biggest or the fastest or the most thrilling attractions, but everything was interesting and unique and incredibly well put together. After that, we wanted to bask in the glow of the ride and kill some time, so we scooted off to get some collector's cups in the shape of a guitar and filled them with Guinness. Not sure if this was against official company policy or not, but our bartender was very accommodating and probably happy for the chance to talk to some people. She regaled us with tales about the park's planned expansion, which didn't seem imminent because, you know, it was completely empty, but we were excited for it. Unrelated, but she also told us that she had to connect to do a spread in a popular men's magazine, and she was super excited about it. So, if you're out there, my friend, I hope that worked out for you. While enjoying our Guinness guitars, we decided to soak in more of the ambiance of the area. Some newer, lesser lands built in recent memory that may or may not be space-themed have lost sight of the importance of walkabout characters, but not Hard Rock Park. This Bobby, is that what you call him? Was more than happy to chat and take a photo. I can't recall if she had a British accent or not. Didn't matter. There was a lot to love in this spot. The little playground with these spinning tent things, the absolutely delightful Abbey Road photo op, and Phonehenge. Brilliant! And if you're asking yourself, did those phones work? You better believe they did. Every single accessible one had pre-recorded messages you could listen to. After going back for another Guinness guitar, we crossed the bridge to enjoy the rest of the park. And because this is South Carolina, of course they had a sign warning you not to jump or dive off of the bridge. We headed over to Maximum RPM, a ride where your car entered a Ferris wheel at the bottom, then connected to the track when you reached the top. Not crazy thrilling, but definitely inventive. The queue even had this thing where you could do karaoke with people in line, but it wasn't operating because, well, no one was in line. Then it was time for the park's signature attraction, the Led Zeppelin coaster, which played the intro to Whole Lotta Love on the way up the lift hill before kicking in at the drop. The music was great. The coaster itself was fine. We were just about to finish our loop around when we ran into the Bare Metal family, possibly the greatest theme park mascots ever to grace our beautiful planet. You ever try to take a picture at the Epcot Food and Wine Festival with a character, and Belle or whoever it is has to gently remind you, "Could you please put your drink down for the photo?" Not the Bare Metal family. They don't care. Go ahead and pound it. This place rules. The Bare Metal family even has their own theme song. At this point, we hit a crossroads. We wanted to stay for the Bohemian Rhapsody nighttime fireworks and laser spectacular, but that was still hours away. There were a couple of apparently award-winning stage shows that we could have seen, but that still wasn't going to kill enough time. And if we drank anymore, we wouldn't have been able to get home. So we decided to go on Knights in White Satin again, hit the gift shop, and head out early. We still felt we had a pretty solid park day, and we could always check out the rest next time. As we got in the car to leave, paying respects to the bizarre beach church, which was right beside it, we looked out the window and bid farewell to Hard Rock Park. We were absolutely in awe of the experience. It was way better than it had any right to be, and we couldn't wait to get home to tell everyone about it, maybe even plan our next trip. But about 6 weeks later, it closed its doors for the last time. Remember, this was back in 2008, so the main source of information we had on theme parks was Screamscape.net, which I'm happy to report has not updated its layout in the 14 years since. I'm just playing Screamscape, you know I love you. If you want to know how old I am, every month or so, me and my wife, at the time girlfriend, would crack a beer and read Screamscape updates to each other from our favorite parks out loud. For a while, it looked like Hard Rock Park might reopen, but after failing to find investors and owing a boatload of money due to the extreme lack of attendance, the Hard Rock license was lost and everything began to fall apart. The park got a new identity as Freestyle Music Park, and honestly, it sucks so bad I don't even want to talk about it. The fact that Hard Rock Park is now just an origin story to Freestyle Music Park on the Wikipedia page has me filled with quiet outrage. It was stripped of pretty much everything that made Hard Rock Park so great. The most egregious example is the re-theming of the Knights in White Satin ride, which simultaneously infuriates and devastates me to this very day. Freestyle Music Park was open for one more season, I think, but who cares? As my mom always used to say to us when we got back from doing anything fun, that's it, the party's over. So what happened? Why was this such a colossal misfire, despite being one of the best theme parks ever conceived and actually created? There's a ton of videos you can watch on this subject, but the quick version is that it was the perfect storm of a bunch of terrible circumstances and missteps. The park wasn't marketed nearly enough or appropriately for the huge deal that it was. It didn't have special offers for locals or discount prices for kids until it was way too late. It had the stigma of being too adult, which, in my opinion, wasn't true. It certainly wasn't the Magic Kingdom, but it wasn't too crass or vulgar that you couldn't bring your family. It definitely leaned into the drinking, but I just went to SeaWorld in San Diego, and let me tell you, they're doing the exact same thing. But the biggest reason, if you're too young to remember, was that 2008 was a time of economic peril here in the United States. Spending on recreational expenses took a massive hit. If the park had opened just 2 years later, I think it could have survived that first season and kept the debtors at bay. And who knows how amazing it could be now. The sad fact is, we'll never know. I'm not kidding when I say talking about this place legitimately bums me out. I always tell people how amazing it was, but in going over all these old photos when putting this video together, it somehow feels even better than that. It was truly a brilliant testament to creativity and such a unique interpretation and expansion of what a theme park could be. All that we have left is a couple of 15-year-old articles and blogs and eBay listings for merch and literal pieces of the park that somehow avoided a landfill. Some of the rides got shipped overseas. Urban explorers have messed around in the remains of what Freestyle Music Park left behind, but the videos are heartbreaking knowing what once was. Hard Rock Park opened as one of the world's most impressive themed experiences, and after $400 million and just 163 days, it was gone. If there's a moral to this story, it's definitely take the trip. These parks and all these experiences are fleeting, so if it means something to you, check it out while you can. Till next time, I'll be here drowning my sorrows out of my Moody Blues Knights in White Satin the Trip square mug. See, even the mugs were interesting. Doesn't matter that you can't really drink from it. That's what my south of the border mug is for. Wow, you've made it to the post-credits scene. You are amazing. This makes you one of my most loyal watchers, and to thank you, I'm gonna regale you with 2 anecdotes that I cut out of the main video because they felt kinda mean and had nothing to do with the story, really. My inclinations that South Carolina is brutal were reinforced by 2 of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, both being said during that trip. The first one was when we were sharing an elevator with an older couple, and the guy looks at the buttons and goes, "Am? What's am mean?" To which the lady politely replied, "I think it means mezzanine." To which he replied, "Mezzanine? Now they're putting fancy French words into our elevators thanks to that Obama." The second one was after the park when we went to a local bar and sat beside a young couple who were playing darts. The girl accused the guy of being dumb, and he said he wasn't, so to prove it, she asked him what the square root of 12 is. He answered 3, and she said no, it's 4, and then he said it could be both 3 and 4, and they agreed and continued playing. The American education system has colossally failed us. Thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe! Whee!